Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is the Not So Serious Keto video podcast. I'm going to start out this video with a little bit of what's going on in my life right now and how that is impacting my video shooting schedule. So, first off, I'd mentioned this in my newsletter. My son Connor is away in the Army most of this month, which means we will have both of my grandsons over. Normally we just have Colton over one day a week, but we're going to have both Colton and Calvin, my 10-month-old grandson, over 4 days per week. And that is going to be a little bit of a challenge. We've already had them over 2 days last week, and it's, I'd forgotten how hard it is trying to watch two kids at once. My children, Connor and Courtney, were only 11 months apart, and I think that almost made it easier because they were both getting into the same sort of stuff, the same sort of trouble, and I could kind of watch them both at the same time that way. Plus, with their ages being fairly similar, they tend to play more together. With Colton being 6 and Calvin being 10 months old, it's a two-person job at this point, and that does impact my ability to shoot videos. So I don't know what it's going to do to my video schedule, but I think it will have some impact. Anyhow, I mentioned this in the newsletter, and if you're not a subscriber to the Serious Keto newsletter, there's a link right down in the description. I'm pretty proud of it. There's no spam. It's just what were my videos last week, a flashback video, maybe a behind-the-scenes picture and some information, what's going on. What else? I'll probably start doing giveaways via the newsletter as well, rather than as part of a video or replying to comments to a video. So anyhow, try it out, check it out. If you don't like it, you can always unsubscribe. Like I said, link down in the description. So that's part one. We've got the grandchildren over 4 days a week, the majority of this month. We also last week, and this is why the food video didn't come out or the recipe video didn't come out on Friday, we've been in this house for between 27 and 28 years, and our garage floor is in rough shape. So we decided we were going to have the garage floor refinished, get some of that polyurethane topping with the little flakes in it. Looks really cool. But that involved basically moving everything out of the garage, which took a solid day, and then staying out of the garage for the 2 days that they were working on it, and then keeping all of our stuff out of the garage for an additional 2 days. So all of the things that were in our garage were out of our garage for 5 days. Now, I don't know what your garage looks like. I've seen worse garages than ours. I've seen better garages than ours. But taking all of that stuff out, including a fridge and freezer combo and a full-size dedicated freezer, that's a lot. And there was a lot of stuff. A lot. And that would have been fine, except it was the first day of waiting for this stuff to dry, we had a couple of major thunderstorms roll through, and they came rather early and unexpectedly. I knew they were coming later in the evening, but it was mid-afternoon, and all of a sudden I get a notification on my phone, like lightning has struck within 7 miles, and there's a severe thunderstorm warning. So I'm outside scrambling, Terry's at work, I'm trying to get everything I can someplace safe, either inside or under a canopy or under a tarp or something like that. And Mother Nature had other plans. It's amazing where rain can get when rain really wants to mess with your stuff, and it did. I mean, I had things that were in Rubbermaid containers underneath tarp that somehow water managed to get under the tarp and up and into. So then we spent about 2 days kind of cleaning up that mess, along with all the branches and stuff that had gotten knocked down and were in the yard. It was a busy week. Now, I don't want to make it sound like, oh boy, that's so horrible. I had some twigs in my yard and things got wet, because, I mean, I know some of you live in Tornado Alley or down in the Gulf Coast and are dealing with hurricanes or East Coast. This was nowhere near like that. That's like, yeah, I shouldn't even be complaining about it. But it did slow things down just a little bit. So now with that out of the way, let's talk about my big video last week, the sugar diet. I felt that as I put this video together, and I'm glad I waited a couple of weeks to put this video together rather than just kicking it out right away. And I mentioned the reason for that in that video is I didn't want to have some sort of a knee-jerk reaction, like, this sounds like a horrible idea and nobody should do it. I wanted to really kind of think through it and be pragmatic and non-judgmental, and I think for the most part I was in that video. But you wouldn't know it from some of the comments I got from advocates of the sugar diet. it was not exactly polite. Now, there were a few. There were a few that I did appreciate. People that had done the sugar diet and explained it calmly, without emotion, just explaining the reasons why they did it, what their results have been, and basically, I think, for them, it was sort of an open-minded thing. Like, I was stalled on keto. I thought I would try and do this and see, what it did to my metabolism. Maybe I'll go back to keto. Who knows? But those comments were sort of in the minority. Most of them were attacks on me or on keto, calling us ignorant. There were a few that were especially nasty and got a channel ban, but I left most of them there. But I didn't reply to very many, just because that would have turned it into a full-time job. And I certainly don't think I'm going to convince any advocates of the sugar diet that it's a bad thing. Not that I would want to. I mean, if it works for you, and this is really the definition of pragmatism, if it works for you, then it works. Keep doing it. And I say that to anybody who's got any sort of dietary lifestyle that is working for them, that optimizes, in their opinion, their health, makes them feel good, and helps them achieve their goals, whether that's carnivore or vegan or sugar diet or Mediterranean diet or keto or whatever. That's your thing. So if it works, do it. And I'm not going to try and convince you otherwise. I don't think at any point in that video last week I tried to convince people to do keto. I simply said, this is my opinion, this is my experience. Keto has worked very well for me. I do, though, want to sort of broadly address a few of the themes in the comments, because there were definitely some themes. I talked about the one calling keto people ignorant. Another one was talking about the science. Science says. I find that to be one of the weaker arguments out there. Anybody can just say that. Science says. And maybe that's true. Maybe science does say it. I can get out on Google and find a study that supports any position that I may have about nutrition. I can also find a study that goes against any position I may have on nutrition. So the science argument doesn't do a lot for me. So when I get a comment that says, science says that sugar is your body's preferred fuel, I'm not sure about that. I mean, let's go back in time a little bit. So if you believe science, humans have been in our form, one way or the other, for about 2 million years. And we spent most of that time, up until about 10,000 years ago, as hunter-gatherers, which means we ate meat and whatever fruit or vegetables may be in season or easy to find. But those carbs were not a regular part of the diet. It was predominantly meat, because that's what was available, that's what could be stored more easily. And we did that for, like I said, the better part of 2 million years. Then about 10,000 years ago, agriculture came along. We started farming wheat and grains. And then about 100 years ago, that's when we really started getting into refined sugar. Now, I don't believe, and this is just a belief, this isn't science, but I don't believe that humans, throughout our evolution, we went through 2 million years, and then finally, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, when refined sugar became available, went, this is the fuel I've been waiting for. So I don't agree that sugar is necessarily the preferred fuel for our bodies, that our bodies want that as our fuel. Now, I'm not denying that it is a high-powered fuel. It definitely is. It's definitely going to ramp up your energy level. But for the same reason I don't put drag racer fuel in my 18-year-old Honda Accord, that's also the reason I don't eat sugar. I don't need that hot, sudden burst of fuel to get through the day. So I'll just stay with the nice, regular keto fuel that I'm using. But that's me. Again, I'm not trying to force my keto on anybody else, including those of you that are finding that the sugar diet is effective. The other thing that I saw in the comments was a real lack of consistency in terms of defining what the sugar diet is. On one end of the spectrum, I had someone tell me it is only sucrose and fructose. That's it. No fiber, no protein, no fat. I don't think that's the definition, but that's what one person told me the definition was. Then on the other hand, on the far other end of the spectrum, I had someone talking about how much they love the sugar diet because they can eat bread and pizza. I'm also not sure that that's part of the sugar diet. And then in between, there were all manner of definitions from people that were basically eating sort of a clean fruit and vegetable diet throughout the day, and then a lean source of protein in the evening, which I think is what most sugar diet advocates recommend. But then there were other people that are like, well, yeah, I'll eat fruit and vegetables throughout the day, and then at dinner, I'll have a ribeye. And I wondered, isn't that going to be too fatty for you? And I think the lack of that clear definition of what the sugar diet is a little bit of a dangerous thing, just because I would think that as an advocate of the sugar diet, you would want to make sure that people are doing it correctly. You'd want to make sure that misinformation isn't going out about what the diet is and how to do it and things like that. And it strikes me, based on some of the videos that I've seen and just all the differing explanations of how it's done, that somebody's not doing it right. I don't know what the right explanation is, but when you've got 10 different explanations on how to do something and they're all different, not all of them can be right. Another comment I got from a number of people was telling me that I have no business offering my opinion on the sugar diet if I've never done it. I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, have you ever had an opinion about something that you've never done? Like, oh, I don't think smoking is a good thing. Well, how do you know if you've never actually smoked? I have no desire to get an electric bicycle. I've seen them. I saw one just the other day, and in a way they kind of look cool, but it doesn't seem like my idea of riding a bicycle. Now, there may be a great reason for them. I just don't know what it is, and in my opinion, I don't need one. I can still opine on things, even if I haven't necessarily tried it. But I am no stranger to sugar pre-keto. And I've talked about this in numerous podcasts before. And as I said, I find that my body seems to work better, my brain seems to work better when I'm on a ketogenic diet. So yeah, I think it's okay to have an opinion about something, but you state it as an opinion. You don't say, that other thing that I'm not doing is stupid. Anybody that does that thing is ignorant. You're gonna die. You're gonna kill yourself, which is the exact sort of attacks that I got and keto got on that video. So as I said at the end of that sugar diet video, I will probably never do the sugar diet. Now, never say never. It's possible. I'm not gonna say absolutely I'm not gonna do it, but I'm probably not ever gonna do it. But that doesn't mean that it's not working for some people. And that's okay. Just like keto works for some people, and veganism works for some people, and carnivore works for some people. If it works for you and you're happy, why are you bothered if somebody is doing something differently? I don't get bothered if somebody is vegan. I don't go out onto a vegan channel and start calling a bunch of names and telling them how stupid it is and how we were meant to eat meat. I don't go into sugar diet videos, people that are proponents of it, and tell them that they're ignorant or that they're going to die or something like that. That's just, there's no reason for me to do that. Because if it's working for them, like I said, if it's working for them, good for them. And I would appreciate the same courtesy from the sugar diet people. I don't know how hard that is. So I'm going to summarize this podcast the same way I did that sugar video. I'm just going to take a sort of step back and watch attitude. See what happens to these folks that are doing the sugar diet. Is it effective for them? If so, for how long? How long do they stay on this? And if they go off it, what do they go to? So it's my hope that those of us who are doing keto and those that are doing the sugar diet, in a way that's sort of good, because we're not fighting each other at the supermarket for who can get that last bag of sugar or that last ribeye. It's actually kind of a good relationship. Some of us on the sugar diet, some of us on keto. I think it works out perfectly, so long as we can all be nice to each other. But that is going to be it for this podcast. As always, I do appreciate this time we get to spend together every Monday, and I appreciate your comments as well, provided they're not mean. Those aren't nearly as cool. But most of you are pretty awesome, and I really do appreciate all of you. So, thanks for watching.